This was the moment a random passenger was suddenly shoved toward an oncoming train at Northgate Station in Seattle, Washington. The attack was completely unprovoked, with the victim pushed dangerously close to the edge as the train approached, but he somehow managed to stay on the platform and survive. Police later identified the suspect as Alexander J., who was arrested and charged, with court records citing prior incidents and ongoing mental health concerns. Here's a clip of a cassowary chasing down a vehicle in what looks like something straight out of Jurassic Park. Native to parts of Australia and New Guinea, cassowaries can sprint up to 30 miles per hour and are considered one of the most dangerous birds on Earth. With dagger-like claws on each foot and a reputation for aggressive charges, they've been known to seriously injure or even kill humans, making them one of the closest real-life reminders of what dinosaurs may have been like. Here's a video of a 500-pound man being rescued from a 15-foot hole at a construction site in California. Officials said the man wasn't a construction worker and somehow ended up trapped at the bottom, prompting a large emergency response to lift him out. Crews had to carefully extract him due to his size and the depth of the hole, and he was taken to a hospital afterward, though how he got there remains unclear.
Morbid Facts. In 1935, Grace McDaniels became a circus freak show star known as the Mule-Faced Woman and was paid $175 per week. Her severe facial deformity was caused by a cancerous lip tumor that ended up taking her life in 1958. In the 12th century Catholic Church, innocence was judged by dunking the suspect's hand in a pot of boiling water. If God had not healed the wound within 3 days, the suspect was found guilty of the crime. In November of 2004, Peter Porco was struck in the head 16 times with an axe while he was asleep in his New York home. But he miraculously woke up the next morning, made breakfast and coffee for himself, and finally fell dead while picking up his newspaper. He had been completely unaware of his battered state and the pools of blood all around him. In 1994, 31-year-old Gloria Ramirez was admitted to a California hospital with symptoms thought to be related to her cervical cancer. She was acting extremely confused and her heart rate was rising rapidly as medical staff did everything they could to return her vital signs to normal. But eventually, nurses noticed a strange oily sheen on Gloria's body, as well as a fruity, garlicky scent emitting from her mouth. Her drawn blood smelled like ammonia and had strange tan-colored particles floating in it. Soon enough, the nurses were having breathing issues and began passing out just from being around her body. Within a few hours, 23 people fell ill and 5 were admitted to the hospital. Ramirez ended up dying from kidney failure and a hazmat crew was called in to transport her body. It turned out she had been taking the extremely toxic substance dimethylsulfone as a home remedy to treat her cancer, the most likely explanation for her poisonous body. In 2019, a Brazilian gang leader tried escaping from his 73-year prison sentence by disguising himself as his teenage daughter who was visiting. He planned on leaving her behind in his place, but the guards weren't fooled by his disguise and stopped him at the exit. 62, a 10-year-old boy from Mexico City found an industrial radioactive capsule and left it in the kitchen cabinet of his home. Within a few months, the boy, his pregnant mother, his 2-year-old sister, and his grandmother all died from severe radiation sickness. In 2013, a Brazilian soccer referee was involved in a heated argument with a player and ended up stabbing him to death. Outraged fans quickly stormed the field before stoning him to death, decapitating him, and putting his head on a stake in the middle of the field. 6'9" serial killer Edmund Kemper killed and decapitated at least 10 women throughout the 60s and 70s. In 1973, he brutally murdered his own mother before turning her head into a dartboard. Once he was in prison, Kemper was interviewed by former FBI agent Robert K. Ressler. The guards locked them in a small room, and a panic button under the table would alert them when the interview was over. So after the interview, Ressler hit the button, but no one responded. Noticing his panic, Kemper told him, "If I went apeshit in here, you'd be in a lot of trouble, wouldn't you? I could screw your head off and place it on the table to greet the guards." 30 minutes later, the guards finally entered the room to retrieve the petrified Ressler. There's a tribe in the Amazon rainforest that performs the most painful coming-of-age ritual known to man. In order to enter manhood, the boys must wear gloves containing hundreds of bullet ants for 5 to 10 minutes. The ants are woven into the gloves with their stingers pointing inwards, so the hand is immediately attacked with a barrage of excruciating stings. According to the Schmidt Pain Index, the sting is ranked as the most painful in all of nature, described as similar to being shot, as the boy's arm is often paralyzed for days following the ritual. In order to pass, he must endure the process without shedding a single tear, otherwise he has to start over another day. In some cases, it may take up to 20 attempts to fully complete the horrific ritual. After saying he was a murder victim's friend while being interviewed by a local news station, this was the moment when Stephen McDaniel found out on live TV that the body. Stephen pled guilty to the murder in 2014 and is now serving out a life sentence. Actress Lisa Robin Kelly, who played Eric's sister on That 70s Show, had a major drinking and drug problem. She was soon replaced on the show and ended up dying of an overdose while in rehab. In 2012, a Missouri family sued the previous owners of the house they purchased after brown recluse spiders started bleeding from the walls. An expert estimated that the house was infested by at least 5,000 of the venomous spiders. In 2020, a Florida man was arrested for allegedly sticking his hand in peanut butter and punching his neighbor who was allergic to nuts. Just last Friday, Idaho Governor Brad Little signed a bill that would allow firing squads to execute death row inmates when lethal injection drugs are unavailable. This is because it's becoming increasingly difficult to obtain these drugs since pharmaceutical companies don't want their products to be associated with killing people. Right. As part of a grim psychology experiment starting in 1961, triplets Edward Gallen, David Kelman, and Robert Shafran were separated at birth. They were placed with adoptive families who were lower class, middle class, and upper middle class, none of whom were aware of the other siblings or any part of the experiment. According to their adoptive parents, as babies, all three of them would bang their heads against the bars of their cribs in distress. This was likely the result of severe separation anxiety, which continued on as the boys got older. By the time they were college age, David and Edward had been in and out of psych wards, while Robert was on probation after his connection to a 1978 murder. A few years later, they were reunited through happenstance but never fully recovered from their mental health issues. On one night when Charlize Theron was 16 years old, her drunken alcoholic father was firing bullets into the door to her room, threatening to kill her and her mom. While he was reloading, Charlize's mother grabbed her own handgun and killed him. The shooting was ruled as self-defense and she didn't face any charges. In 1704, Sir Isaac Newton predicted that the world as we know it would end around the year 2060. He believed humanity would then progress into an era of divinely inspired peace. A tiger's tongue is so rough that it can lick your skin off with only a few licks. At over 3,500 years old, the senator was the name of the oldest bald cypress tree and the 5th oldest tree in the world overall. But it was accidentally burned down in 2012 when 26-year-old Sarah Barnes lit a fire inside the tree to see the meth she was about to smoke. In February of 2013, Canadian tourist Elisa Lam went missing while staying at the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. Weeks after her disappearance, police released footage of her last sighting as taken by an elevator surveillance cam. In the video, Elisa can be seen looking outside the elevator and jumping back in, almost like she was trying to hide from somebody. She then proceeds to make incredibly strange hand gestures as if she's trying to feel something that isn't there. Soon enough, guests at the hotel began to complain about low water pressure in their rooms. Some even claimed to management that the water was black and gave off a strange smell. Upon investigating, authorities finally found Elisa's body floating in one of the hotel's water tanks 19 days after she first disappeared. Her death was ultimately ruled an accident, with bipolar disorder being a significant factor. Here are some morbid facts about World War II. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the US government issued Mickey Mouse gas masks in case of a chemical attack. The incentive was to make them appear less scary to kids, but most people don't think it worked. These are some morbid facts about the WWE. This photo shows The Undertaker looking down at medical staff after chokeslamming Mick Foley through the roof of Hell in a Cell. The 16-foot fall was completely unplanned and left Foley with bruised ribs, a dislocated jaw, and internal bleeding. The Undertaker was certain he'd just killed the man, but Foley managed to get up and even complete the match. During a 1999 pay-per-view event, Owen Hart plummeted 78 feet to his death when the harness lowering him to the ring snapped. Former Japanese wrestler Hayabusa is considered to be a pioneer of high flying in the sport, but his career ended abruptly in 2001 after a botched backflip left him paralyzed from the neck down. The world record for alcohol consumption was set by pro wrestler Andre the Giant. The 7'4" monster once drank 156 beers in one sitting, which is just under 15 gallons. Here are some morbid facts about baseball. In the history of the MLB, there have only been 3 players with the first name Aurelio. Amazingly but tragically, they all died the same way, by car accident. Many historians consider Brooklyn player Jim Creighton to be the first superstar of baseball, but he died suddenly in 1862 after swinging so hard on a home run ball that he ruptured his bladder. During the 1910s, there was an American baseball team completely consisting of death row prisoners. As long as they kept winning, their executions were delayed. Morbidly wholesome facts. Game of Thrones star Emilia Clarke has survived 2 near-fatal brain aneurysms that have left pieces of her brain missing. She has since founded a charity called Same You, which helps provide treatment for people who have suffered a brain injury or stroke. A baby penguin was born without feathers at a Chinese zoo and was therefore rejected by his parents. But zookeepers found out he just had some digestive issues, so they fed him by hand until he grew his feathers and was soon reunited with his family. Before the year 1772, potatoes were deemed inedible and were only used as hog feed across Europe. But a French soldier who was taken as POW was fed only potatoes during his captivity and survived. Feeling like he should have died, he made it his life's mission to convince the world of the nutritional value of potatoes. And his tomb is often decorated with potatoes as tribute to this day. Jack Black's character in the 2006 masterpiece Nacho Libre is based on a real Mexican priest. Sergio Gutierrez Benitez fought as a lucha libre wrestler for 23 years to support the orphanage he founded. While Captain Robert Campbell was a prisoner of the Germans during World War I, he asked the Kaiser if he could visit his dying mother in England. Surprisingly, the Kaiser gave him permission on the grounds that he returned to prison afterwards. True to his word, the captain came back. In April of 1988, the roof of an Aloha Airlines jet ripped off after an explosive decompression at 24,000 feet. A flight attendant named Clarabelle Lansing was sadly thrown from the plane while serving a drink, and her body was never found. But she was miraculously the only fatality, as the plane somehow managed to land safely and spare the other 94 lives on board. Here are some morbidly wholesome facts about dogs. On 9/11, a guide dog named Roselle led a group of people, including her blind owner, down 78 flights of stairs before the North Tower collapsed. She stopped only once to give kisses to a woman who was having a panic attack. In Japan in the 1920s, Hachiko the Akita became famous for meeting his owner every day at the railroad station. Even after his owner died, he continued to make the same journey every single day for 9 straight years. In 2014, 3-year-old Karina Chikatova survived in the Siberian wilderness for 11 days with no one except her dog. She ate wild berries, drank from a river, and curled up with her dog for warmth. She was saved when her dog managed to find her village and guide rescuers toward her. During the California Tubbs fire in 2017, a guard dog named Odin refused to leave his flock of goats behind while his owners fled to safety. Days later, the owners returned to their decimated property to find Odin and all of the goats still alive. The largest things in the world. Standing at over 10 feet tall and weighing 1,200 pounds, Gigantopithecus was the largest ape to ever walk the earth. It went extinct around 100,000 years ago, meaning it coexisted with humans at a point in history. What you're looking at is a single living cell. Valonia ventricosa is the largest single-celled organism on the planet. When fully grown, it can be the size of a tennis ball, as its structure has baffled scientists for centuries. India's Statue of Unity is the world's largest standing statue by far. The 600-foot-tall bronze monument is nearly twice the size of the Statue of Liberty and cost over $400 million to construct. Only first explored in 2009, Vietnam's Hang Son Doong is the largest known cave system in the world. It's more than 3 miles long and 600 feet high, which is so massive that it literally has its own weather system. The tallest person in recorded history was a young man from Illinois named Robert Wadlow. A mutated pituitary gland resulted in his breathtaking height of 8'11", weighing 440 pounds with a shoe size of 36. In 1940, he died at the young age of 22 from a septic blister on his ankle caused by a poorly fitted iron brace. The world's largest family can be found in India, where father Ziona Chana had 94 children with 39 different wives. This 10-foot wide, 500-pound shell made in Malta set a world record in 2016 for the largest firework ever launched. Costing over $3.5 billion to construct, Saudi Arabia's Abraj Khudai is set to become the largest hotel in the world. It'll feature 4 helipads, 70 restaurants, and 10,000 rooms. The dumbest ways to die. A Kansas man died after being shot by his dog in a freak hunting accident. He was sitting in the front seat of his pickup truck when his dog stepped on his rifle in the back seat. In 2011, a 49-year-old Russian woman had a heart attack and was presumed dead. A few days later, she woke up at her own wake and was so shocked that she screamed and had another heart attack, this time dying for real. In 1991, a woman from Thailand accidentally slipped in mud, grabbed a live wire, and was electrocuted to death. Later that day, when her sister was showing the neighbors how the accident happened, she slipped, grabbed the same live wire, and was electrocuted to death. Mario Puzo, the author of the Godfather books who also adapted them to film, had no idea what he was doing since he'd never written the script before. After winning 2 Oscars, he decided to buy a book on screenwriting to learn how to improve. In the very first chapter, it said to study the first Godfather film. Rarest things in the world. This record-breaking 10-inch long tadpole found in an Arizona swamp never evolved into a bullfrog. Experts say it's most likely due to a hormonal mutation that'll prevent it from metamorphosing until death. Bill Gates has a periodic table in his office that's complete with samples or representations of all the elements. Filmed almost 3,000 feet deep in the waters of Japan, this alien-like siphonophore will make you never want to swim in the ocean again. Jesus. Qatari fishermen were treated to this extremely rare devil horns eclipse during extraordinary sunrise conditions. Australian scientists have created the rarest meatball in the world by cultivating flesh using the genetic sequence of an extinct woolly mammoth. But no one's willing to try it since the 5,000-year-old proteins might be toxic to humans. These are the most unlikely animal friendships ever seen in nature. In 2013, a Finnish photographer captured the extraordinary friendship between a female gray wolf and a male brown bear. They shared their food and spent several nights together over a 10-day span before parting ways. In 2004, a baby hippo named Owen was swept away from his mother during a tsunami. He then mistook a 130-year-old tortoise for another hippo, and the two became best friends. In 2015, Amur the Russian tiger was given a goat to eat, but miraculously became best friends with him instead. A Turkish pelican became friends with a stray dog who was often seen chilling at the pier all alone. The man who photographed this eventually adopted the dog, but brings him back every day to see his pelican friend. In 2010, a lion, tiger, and bear cub were rescued from a drug dealer's basement in Atlanta. Amazingly, they remained close with each other and even lived in the same habitat for over 15 years. Artifact porn. In 1663, part of the fossilized skeleton of a woolly rhinoceros was dug up in Germany. Nicknamed the Magdeburg unicorn, it resulted in one of the worst fossil reconstructions in human history. This was the sample case used by a neon salesman circa 1935. Dating back at least 12,000 years, Iran's ancient village of Maymun is said to be a primary human residence in the Iranian plateau. Close to 200 families still live in the hand-dug homes within the rocks, some of which have been inhabited for over 3,000 years. After 25 years of dealing with a strange dip in the floor beneath his couch, a man from Plymouth, England finally decided to investigate. After digging down into his home's foundation, he found a 33-foot deep medieval well with a 500-year-old sword inside. The sword's super lame looking, I wasn't gonna include it, but there you go. Here's a pair of gloves with bladed fingertips from London during the Victorian era. They were likely worn as self-defense gloves by wealthy women who had to take walks by themselves. A Dublin grocery store has a glass floor showcasing an 11th century Viking well that was discovered while the shop was being built. Last year, a perfectly preserved 1500-year-old era was found nestled between some rocks in Norway. The research team thinks it was encased in ice, then transported downslope as the ice melted. Here's the enormous tusk of a woolly mammoth found in Siberia that was most likely killed by ancient hunters around 12,000 years ago. The 12-angled stone was part of a 700-year-old stone wall inside of an Incan palace. To this day, the joints are so perfectly cut that not even a single sheet of paper can fit between any of the blocks, not to mention its incredible size. In 1731, King Frederick of Sweden sent a taxidermist his favorite lion after it died. But the taxidermist had never seen a lion before, so this was the result, the derpiest lion in the world. Here are some carbonized loaves of bread that were found in the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum, both of which were buried in volcanic ash following the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. These stair dust corners were introduced in the 1800s to make sweeping easier. They would prevent dust from accumulating in the corners. Here's what the Great Pyramid of Giza looked like 4,500 years ago compared to today. All the pyramids were originally covered in polished white limestone, while the capstone at the top was covered in gold. In the summer of 2018 in Crete, a farmer was trying to park in the shade of an olive tree on his property. Suddenly the ground gave out and he discovered an ancient Minoan tomb that hadn't been touched in at least 3,400 years. Oldest things in the world. The Sweet Track is a Neolithic timber walkway discovered in England that's right around 6,000 years old. It was part of a network of wooden tracks built to provide a dry path across the marshy ground, and is known as the oldest surviving man-made walkway in the world. Found in the Judean desert in Israel, this 9,000-year-old stone mask is said to be the oldest known intact mask in the world. This 3,000-year-old foot of an Egyptian mummy was found with a prosthetic toe. The amazingly crafted object is likely the earliest prosthesis ever found. Here's a comparison of the world's oldest underground train station in London 160 years ago versus today. Morbid Facts. Japan has always been known for its wacky game shows, but in 1998, one particular show took this to the extreme. A man nicknamed Nasubi was selected to be locked inside of an apartment with nothing but a supply of water and thousands of magazines. He was challenged to enter mail-in sweepstakes until he won about $10,000 in prizes, but he was given no food, no clothes, and no form of human contact. His only means of survival were the items he won from the magazines. The man was told it was only experimental and that he was to record himself for a later broadcast. But in reality, his entire experience was live-streamed to an audience of tens of millions of people to watch and make fun of. There were times when Nasubi went weeks without food and was fortunate to win items such as dog food and uncooked rice. On one occasion, he won a can of spaghetti after starving for days, but he couldn't eat it since he didn't have a can opener. When Nasubi would break down mentally and cry in front of the camera, the show's producers would play a laugh track to the audience so that they would find it funny. After 355 days of pure isolation and torture, Nasubi had achieved his goal, but the show had become far too popular for producers to end. So in the middle of the night, he was blindfolded and taken to a new apartment, where he was given the task of winning enough magazine prizes to win a plane ticket back home. This goal was revised several times to the point where it took Nasubi an extra 3 months to finally win the game show. He was again blindfolded and brought to a final apartment where the walls suddenly dropped and he was met with a massive live audience. Still naked and confused, Nasubi would soon realize that his endeavors were live broadcasted the entire time. The entire experiment lasted about 15 months in total, and the horrific show broke many TV records with a peak of about 17 million viewers each night. For months and even years after the ordeal, Nasubi reported being uncomfortable in clothing and struggled heavily with human interaction. Shortly after returning from the moon, Buzz Aldrin fell into deep depression and addiction. He was quoted saying, "I wanted to resume my duties, but there were no duties to resume. There was no goal, no sense of calling, no project worth pouring myself into." Police in Pakistan are searching for a religious healer who reportedly convinced a pregnant woman that hammering a 2-inch nail into her skull would help her give birth to a boy. The woman became desperate after her husband threatened to divorce her if she gave birth to another girl for the 4th time. Lucy Studi from Iowa claims that her late father was a serial killer who murdered up to 70 women throughout the 70s and 80s. She told authorities that the man forced his kids to help bury the bodies, many of them thrown into a well that's since been filled in. Police aren't exactly sure how to approach it, especially since Lucy's sister says she's lying about the whole thing. 15. British woman Amanda Plale began receiving threatening emails from a stalker which included photos of her in public. She was terrorized for 2 straight years and was soon too afraid to even leave her home. Luckily, authorities eventually discovered that the emails were coming from inside her own house. Turns out it was her loving husband the entire time. In the summer of 2021, 40-year-old Jerry Smith was posing on Tinder as a woman named Angie Renee when he met 18-year-old football player Isemimen Itute. After they got together and went all the way with each other, Itute realized that Angie was a man. That's when the 6'3" linebacker stomped and beat the man to death. Just earlier this year, he was acquitted of all murder charges. This photo from the early 1900s shows nurses standing with mentally ill patients wrapped in wet linens. This treatment method was thought to be calming for patients, despite many of them constantly screaming to get out. Here's a 1989 photo of South African spear fisherman Gerhio van Niekerk showing off his recent bite mark from a great white. He told reporters, quote, "It was a 1 in a million freak accident." While diving near Cape Town just 2 months afterwards, Gergio went missing until his shark-bitten leg washed ashore a few days later. For 24 years, Missouri woman Dee Dee Blanchard pretended that her daughter Gypsy had multiple chronic conditions. She claimed her daughter suffered from leukemia, asthma, muscular dystrophy, and had the mental capacity of a 7-year-old. Dee Dee forced her to stay in a wheelchair and act disabled, subjecting her to many unnecessary surgeries and medications. Gypsy was often fed through a feeding tube and supplied air through an oxygen tank. Her mother also regularly shaved the girl's head to give her the appearance of a cancer patient. Whenever Gypsy suggested that she wasn't actually sick, her mother would physically harm her. In 2015, Gypsy was finally tired of her mother's horrific abuse and sent her boyfriend to stab Dee Dee 17 times in the back. Today, Gypsy is still serving out her 10-year sentence after pleading guilty to second-degree murder of her abusive mother. In 2004, a Georgia man was found naked and beaten unconscious next to a dumpster behind a Burger King. He didn't have any possessions or ID on him and couldn't even remember his own name. When he looked at himself in the mirror, he recognized himself but realized he was about 20 years older than he thought. For the next decade, authorities struggled to identify the man despite TV coverage and a nationwide effort. Given the alias Benjamin Kyle, the man was unable to obtain employment without his social security number and therefore became homeless for several years. It wasn't until 2015 when he was finally identified through DNA testing as William Burgess Powell, born in 1948. But despite this discovery, there's still a 20-year gap in his life history with no documented records or anything he can remember. This iconic photograph of 28-year-old Marcy Borders covered in dust was taken just after the World Trade Center collapsed on 9/11. Marcy was a bank teller who worked on the 81st floor of the North Tower. She survived the collapse, but sadly died from cancer in 2014, likely caused by the toxic fumes she was exposed to. This is the gravestone of H.R. Giger, the Swiss artist and sculptor who designed the creatures for the movie Alien. On a British Airways flight in 1995, a woman was complaining of chest pain, so 2 doctors came over to check on her. They quickly realized she was suffering from a punctured lung and required immediate surgery. But the problem was they couldn't land for help since the increase in air pressure could kill her. So they performed mid-air surgery on her using a coat hanger, silverware, and a bottle of cognac for sterilization. Within 10 minutes, they'd saved her life. The short-faced bear was once the most abundant bear in all of North America until it went extinct around 11,000 BC. Some scientists argue that these massive bears delayed human migration into North America because they kept killing men trying to cross the Bering Strait. Heart Attack Grill is a restaurant in Las Vegas where customers over 350 pounds eat for free. The only vegan option on the menu is cigarettes, and up to 3 people have died from heart attacks while eating there. In 1940, Walt Disney hired 11 little people to dress up as Pinocchio and wave to people at the movie's premiere. He left them on a theater balcony with enough food and wine for the day, but there was no way for them to get down. By late afternoon, they had all taken off their thick, sweaty costumes and were naked, drunk, and swearing at parents and their children. When a predatory producer assaulted one of her friends, Carrie Fisher sent him a Tiffany box with a severed cow tongue inside. She also left a note inside that read, "The next delivery will be something of yours in a much smaller box." When Britain changed the packaging of Tylenol to blister packs instead of bottles, the suicide rate from Tylenol declined by nearly 50%. Anyone who wanted a lethal dose of 50 pills now had to push them out one by one instead of easily dumping them out from a bottle. In 2013, a 60-year-old Japanese truck driver found out he was accidentally switched at birth in a Tokyo hospital in 1953. His biological parents were very wealthy, and the infant who took his place grew up to own a successful real estate company. Meanwhile, the original son was raised by a poor single mother and struggled with poverty throughout his entire life. After having an allergic reaction to asthma medicine in 2009, Tennessee woman Shanina Isom has been suffering from a mysterious skin condition that causes her to grow fingernails in place of her hair. In 2004, 200 women armed with kitchen knives stormed into an Indian courthouse before stabbing and murdering Akuya Dav, a gang leader, serial killer, and rapist who kept escaping his sentencing due to bribes. Every single woman later claimed responsibility for killing him. Proof that animals are evolving. The first ever case of biofluorescence in Tasmanian devils was documented just last year at Ohio's Toledo Zoo. While typically observed in fish, this phenomenon has also been seen in certain squirrels, possums, and platypuses. It's unclear what purpose this incredible trait serves in land mammals, but scientists think it might be a way for them to identify each other and attract mates in the dark. Ken Allen the orangutan escaped from his exhibit at the San Diego Zoo at least 9 separate times in the 1980s. His apparent goals included observing other animals, throwing rocks at his orangutan rivals, and happily taking photos with tourists. Baffled by his continuous ability to escape, the zoo was forced to spend over $40,000 to eliminate any possible escape routes in his enclosure. Ken famously earned himself the nickname the Hairy Houdini. A little girl from Seattle became friends with a group of crows that she feeds in exchange for gifts. The items they bring her are typically shiny and have included pieces of glass, buttons, and even lost jewelry. It's one of the first recorded cases of birds giving gifts to humans. In fact, crows are one of the smartest non-primate animals on the planet. Research has shown that they're aware of what they know and can ponder the content of their own minds, a level of analytical thought that scientists used to think only belonged to humans and higher mammals. They've discovered the use of basic tools, understand how stoplights and vending machines work, and have long-term facial recognition skills, meaning if you piss off a crow, it can end up holding a grudge against you for years. Crows have even been known to hold funerals and will avoid areas that are deemed dangerous for birds, meaning they understand the concept of death and fear it. In Moscow, Russia, packs of stray dogs have been known to send out a smaller, cuter member to beg for food. They apparently understand that it will be more successful than a bigger, less attractive member of the pack. Octopuses are considered to be the smartest invertebrate animals on the planet. On 3 separate occasions, Otto the octopus caused a power outage at his aquarium by climbing to the edge of his tank and shooting a jet of water at a bright light. He's also been seen juggling hermit crabs, throwing rocks at the glass, and rearranging the surroundings of his tank. Here are some morbid facts about President JFK. In 1966, Kennedy's brain was stolen from the National Archives and has been missing ever since. Some theorize that it was stolen to hide the truth about his murder, while others believe that his brother Robert took it to conceal the number of medications that the president was on. These are some morbid facts about cults. Heaven's Gate was a religious cult led by a Texas man named Marshall Applewhite. In 1997, they thought the earth was about to be quote-unquote recycled and that the only way to escape this was to die immediately. Cult leader Charles Manson began studying Scientology while he was in prison in 1961. But after completing 150 hours of Scientology training, Manson deemed the religion too crazy for him to continue. Here are some insane facts about people who have won the lottery. In 1999, a Florida waitress was tipped a lottery ticket and won $10 million. She was then sued by her colleagues for their share before being sued by the man who tipped her the ticket. That same week, she was kidnapped by her ex-husband and ended up shooting him in the chest when he threatened to kill her. She then spent the next 10 years fighting a legal battle against the IRS, which she eventually won. A man from New Jersey once bought a $5 bottle of orange juice from ShopRite, but his wife made him return it because it was too expensive. He then decided to buy 2 Powerball tickets with the refunded money and ended up winning the $300 million jackpot. In 1984, a regular customer at a pizzeria asked his waitress to help him pick the lottery numbers. He won, came back, and true to his word, tipped her half of the $6 million prize. In 2006, 2 Australian miners who were trapped in a cave requested an iPod containing songs by the Foo Fighters. Upon hearing about this, lead singer Dave Grohl wrote a note to them saying, "I want you to know that when you come home, there's 2 tickets to any food show anywhere and 2 cold beers waiting for you." The men were rescued a few days later, and the Foo Fighters even wrote a song about them. The movie 50 First Dates inspired a real-life early dementia treatment across America. Every morning, patients are shown a video message of support from loved ones, just like the video at the end of the movie. In 2019, a Florida man accidentally locked his 1-year-old baby inside of his hot car. That's when 5 nearby prisoners out on work detail came to the rescue with a coat hanger to break her out. The mother who recorded a video of it said, "Them prisoners bust that shit right open. Thank God for the criminals in the world." Contrary to popular belief, there has never been a single reported case of kids being poisoned by Halloween candy from their neighbor. The only confirmed case involved a father who laced his son's pixie sticks with cyanide so that he could cash in on his life insurance. Found along an ancient Greek colony along the Nile River, the oldest known pair of socks are 1600 years old. They're made out of red wool and were designed to be worn with sandals. The Nishiyama Hotel in Japan is considered to be the oldest hotel in the world. It's been managed by the same family over 52 generations and has been operating since the year 705. Dated to 1504, this carved ostrich egg is the oldest known depiction of the New World. The globe shows North America as an unnamed group of scattered islands. It contains depictions of ships and monsters and even includes the phrase Hic sunt dracones, which translates to Here lies dragons. The Spire wine bottle was found in 1867 in what used to be a part of ancient Rome. Dating back to the 4th century AD, it's believed to be the oldest unopened bottle of wine in the world. This staircase at the Hallstatt salt mine in Austria is 3,100 years old. It's the oldest known wooden staircase ever discovered. The average lifespan of koi fish in Japan is typically around 40 years. But born in 1751, a koi fish named Hanako far exceeded this average, reportedly dying at the age of 226 in the year 1977. This 3,200-year-old Egyptian tablet is considered to be the oldest attendance sheet in the world. Reasons for being absent included brewing beer, embalming brother, and bitten by scorpion. Rarest things in the world. Here's a rare view of Niagara Falls when it was completely dried up in 1969 for the first time in 12,000 years. Knickers the Australian steer has been deemed too big to be slaughtered. Standing at 6'4" and weighing nearly 3,000 pounds, the cow is so massive that it wouldn't even fit in the butchering equipment. Sadly, this other cow wasn't so lucky since it was turned into a deliciously rare flank steak. In 2015, an 87-year-old Chinese woman visited doctors to address the 5-inch horn growing out of her forehead that began as a mole. It's made out of the same material as fingernails and can be easily trimmed down in the same way. Out of the estimated 307 million lakes in the world, less than 30 of them are pink. The largest being Australia's Lake Hillier, which gets its natural bubblegum hue from a combination of red algae and bacteria. But the water is completely safe for humans to swim in. A sundog is an extremely rare weather phenomenon that produces bright spots around the sun. It happens when sunlight refracts off of ice crystals during perfect atmospheric conditions. There are over 38,000 McDonald's locations in the world, but only the one in Roswell, New Mexico is shaped like a UFO. This incredible award-winning photograph left scientists from all over the world completely astonished in 2018. At the very center of the image is a single atom suspended in motion by electric fields. What makes this photo so amazing is that it was captured with just an ordinary camera. It's extremely rare for axolotls to go through a phase called morphing where they lose their gills and webbed feet and essentially evolve into a land creature. But it still happens occasionally as a result of dormant genes from their ancestors, like what happened to this one named Gollum. Found only in the swamps of southern Missouri, dragon scale calcite looks like it came straight out of Game of Thrones. Someone accidentally deleted important photos from their camera, so an image recovery software brought them all back, including this test shot where the camera was assembled in China. This rare tomahawk steak appears to have been cooked to perfection. In certain parts of England, you can find these wavy brick fences. This shape actually uses fewer bricks than a normal brick wall, since it only requires one layer of bricks to make it sturdy thanks to the arch support provided by the wavy pattern. Badasses of history. Peter Freuchen was a 6'7" Danish explorer who was the real-life version of the most interesting man in the world. Throughout the 1910s, he rode thousands of miles across the Arctic by dog sled. On one occasion, he became trapped in an avalanche and was buried deep in a pile of snow and ice. Lacking any sharp weapon to escape, he created a dagger out of his frozen feces and broke through the ice with his bare hands. After crawling back to base camp for 3 hours, he noticed his toes had turned black, so he amputated them by himself with nothing but a pair of pliers. In the years that followed, he was the star of an Oscar-winning movie, wrote 32 books as an author, and became the 5th person to win the jackpot on the famous game show The $64,000 Question. In his later years, he became actively involved in the Dutch resistance and fought against Nazi occupation in Denmark. He was seen as such a threat to the Nazi movement that Hitler himself ordered him to be arrested and sentenced to death. The photo above shows Peter standing next to his third wife, wearing a coat made out of the polar bear that was unlucky enough to cross his path. Insane coincidences! While filming for Blade Trinity, Jessica Biel was instructed to shoot an arrow directly at the camera that was more than 60 feet away. It was protected by plexiglass except for a 2x2 inch square in front of the lens, which Biel managed to hit with a direct bullseye, thus destroying the $300,000 camera. While filming the final scene of the movie Kingpin, where Bill Murray's character bowls 3 strikes in a row, Bill Murray actually did bowl 3 strikes in a row. His celebration along with the crowd's roaring applause were both genuine reactions. An adopted man from Michigan had been searching for his birth mother for 4 years before finding out she'd been working at the same Lowe's as him the entire time. Oscar the cat served on 3 World War II battleships, 1 German and 2 British. All 3 ships were sunken during battles, but the cat miraculously survived each time by floating on wooden planks. He was later nicknamed Unsinkable Sam. Former NFL player Delon McCullough was adopted in 1973 and reunited with his birth mother in 2017. She then revealed the name of his father, who turned out to be his coach and mentor throughout his life without either of them having any idea they were related. Artifact porn. The largest known Easter Island statue was carved but never dug out from the ground. It would have stood at 72 feet tall and weighed up to 360,000 pounds. With the largest standing statue being only 33 feet tall, it's likely that this one was simply far too big to erect. In the year 1916, an Ottoman supply train was ambushed by Lawrence of Arabia in the middle of the Arabian desert, where it still lies today. Here's a comparison of the coronation gloves of Queen Elizabeth I from 1559 and Queen Elizabeth II from 1953. Weird crime facts. This is a photo of Jason Vukovic smiling at his brother after being sentenced to 28 years in prison. Vukovic tracked down registered sex offenders before assaulting and robbing them. He would then give the money to single mothers that he knew. Both he and his brother were sexually abused as children. This is the cabin of Unabomber Ted Kaczynski when it was held in an FBI storage facility in California. Ted Bundy removed the seat of his Volkswagen Beetle so that his victims couldn't be seen while he was driving. In Chicago 1926, famous piano player Fats Waller was kidnapped by gangsters for 3 days. He feared for his life until finding out that he was the surprise guest at Al Capone's birthday party. When he was found, he was extremely drunk and had earned thousands of dollars in tips from the partygoers. In the year 2000, this man was given a 13-year sentence for armed robbery, but the state of Missouri somehow forgot to put him in prison. They only noticed the error 13 years later when it was time for his release. After being apprehended, he was officially freed when the courts determined he was a changed man. In Brazilian prisons, inmates can shorten their sentences by reading. For every book they read and write a report on, their sentences can be reduced by up to 4 days. The world's most wanted hacker was eventually hacked and arrested because his password was his cat's name plus 123. This is a photo of a stripper posing in front of a judge in 1983. She was displaying that her bikini briefs were too large to expose her cooter to the undercover cops who arrested her. After a meticulous examination by the judge, the case was dismissed. In 2014, a man from Arizona stole a diamond worth $160,000 and traded it for $20 worth of weed. A group of thieves in England posed as mannequins in a department store just before it closed for the night. They then got away with stealing 10,000 pounds in merchandise. Jackie Chan's father was a spy while his mother was an opium dealer. They met through an arrest and fell in love. A python from Australia became addicted to meth after living in a drug lab. Police busted the lab before sending the snake to rehab for 7 months. Morbid facts. This photo was taken of a group of people who crashed into the Andes in 1972. They were eventually saved but had to resort to cannibalism to survive for nearly 3 months. They're all smiling in the photo, but it becomes quite disturbing when you realize there's a human spine on the ground next to them. When actor-comedian Red Fox was dying of a heart attack while on set, nobody offered to help him. This was because everyone thought it was nothing more than the fake heart attack act he was famous for. When James Bulger went missing in 1993, police became optimistic when they found out he was last seen with children. Sadly, this was a false hope since the 2 boys who kidnapped James went on to torture him for hours before leaving him for dead on some train tracks. His body was found so horribly mutilated that coroners couldn't even determine how he died. Martin Luther King Jr. was tragically assassinated when he was just 39 years old. However, an autopsy revealed that he had the heart of a 60-year-old, likely due to stress. This is a photo of two elephants embracing one last time before being separated for a lifetime of serving man. A deaf man was stabbed and killed in North Carolina just for communicating. He was simply signing to his friend when a local gang member mistook the conversation for gang signs. BBC regularly rehearses the Queen's death to ensure that their cover of it is flawless when she actually does die. 4 people were killed during a Rolling Stones concert in 1969, but the overall population of the concert didn't change. This was because 4 babies were born during the concert as well. This 1955 device allowed the user to smoke an entire pack of cigarettes at once. Alzheimer's disease doesn't affect emotional memory as strongly as informational memory. As a result, Alzheimer's patients who are told bad news will often forget the news but will remain sad and have no idea why. In 2012, a British man went into a coma after getting in a bad car accident. When he woke up, he could speak fluent French and genuinely believed that he was Matthew McConaughey. Veterinarians take their own lives at 3 times the rate of the average person. This is partly due to online trolling and threats from pet owners who blame them for the death of a pet. Another reason is that vets can often tell when animals have been abused by their owners, but there's very little that they can do about it. Due to the skin's elasticity, it takes 3 full rotations to remove the human head. When a woman with breast implants is cremated, the implants will melt into a goo. It then drips to the bottom of the furnace and must be cleaned up once it is cooled. A South African politician used to love his Mercedes so much that his last wish was to be buried while sitting in it. A man was once so angry about losing a knife fight in CSGO that he spent 6 months tracking down his opponent and stabbed him in real life. If you had smallpox scars in the 18th century, you were more likely to get hired. The scars proved that you already had smallpox and couldn't pass it on to your employers. The symptoms of schizophrenia are shaped by culture. Americans with schizophrenia tend to be more paranoid and experience harsher voices and hallucinations. In India and Africa, schizophrenic people tend to hear voices that are more playful and positive. If you're close enough to a nuclear blast, you'll die with no pain because the explosion will kill you faster than your brain can detect pain. This eerie 1986 Twin Towers advertisement speaks for itself. In 1989, a Los Angeles woman received a phone call from her brother-in-law saying that her ex-husband was on his way to kill her. She dialed 911 but was told nothing could be done unless he showed up at her house. Within 15 minutes, he arrived, killing her and 4 other women who were celebrating her 27th birthday. Badass humans of history. During the Vietnam War, a platoon of American soldiers were told to destroy a village that was taken over by the Viet Cong. But instead of aggressors, they found unarmed villagers, most of them women, children, and old men. Acting on initial orders, the soldiers began brutally executing the innocent civilians in broad daylight. After hundreds had been killed, Major Hugh Thompson landed in the area and struggled to figure out what had happened. Upon realizing his fellow American soldiers were responsible, he landed his helicopter between the soldiers and the Vietnamese people. He then told the troops that if they continued the killings, he and his crew would open fire on them. This finally ended the massacre, but Major Thompson was shunned as an American traitor. It wasn't until 1998 that the Army finally acknowledged he had done the right thing. These are some morbid facts about North Korea. North Korean hospitals are so underfunded that many operations are performed without anesthesia or antibiotics. To make matters worse, the same needles are often used for different patients, so a lot of people exit the hospital in worse shape than when they entered. North Korean law imposes a 3-generation punishment rule. If one person commits a crime, their entire bloodline, including the grandparents, parents, and children, are all sent to prison. When South Korea stopped sending fertilizer to North Korea, the country faced a national shortage. So every year since, citizens have to reach a quota of poop that they must donate to the state. North Koreans are raised to believe that their leaders are gods who can read their thoughts. This, along with extremely limited internet access, make it very difficult for citizens to realize how oppressive their government truly is. Let's take a look at some of the weirdest sharks in the world. The frilled shark is a species of deep water fish that is rarely seen by humans. Often called a living fossil, the shark is believed to have long been linked to mythical sea serpents. The extremely rare viper dogfish was only discovered in 1986. They're a bioluminescent species of shark and look like something straight out of a horror movie. Only discovered in 1976, the megamouth shark is an extremely rare species of freshwater shark. Less than 100 of them have ever been seen or caught by humans. Known for its protrusible jaw and nail-like teeth, the goblin shark has only been seen about 50 times since its discovery in 1897. The Greenland shark is believed to be the longest living vertebrate animal in the world. They can live up to 400 years old and don't reach puberty until the age of 150. Weird nature facts. A sea sponge and starfish resembling SpongeBob and Patrick were found deep in the Atlantic Ocean. However, this type of starfish is known to prey on sea sponges, so the Patrick-like creature probably had dinner in mind instead of friendship. The silkie is a breed of chicken named for its fluffy feathers that feel like silk. They also make great pets since they're known for their calm and friendly temperament. This animal that looks like a teddy bear is an endangered mammal called the eerie pika. Discovered in 1983 by Lee Wai-dong, they weren't seen for 30 years until Lee discovered them again in 2014. It's estimated that there are less than 1,000 of them left in the world. Blood Falls is a glacier in Antarctica that pours out red plumes of liquid, making it look like the ice is bleeding. In the 1970s, two communities of chimpanzees that were once unified went to war with each other. It lasted 4 years and included many violent fights, murders, and kidnappings. It is the only documented war among chimpanzees in the wild. Hagfish are ancient eel-shaped fish that secrete a thick slime when threatened. In 2017, a truck full of them crashed on a highway in Oregon, creating one of the most bizarre traffic jams you'll ever see. A cow from Bangladesh named Rani is the smallest adult cow in the world. He is less than 2 feet tall and only weighs about 60 pounds. The albatross has the largest wingspan of any bird and can fly for years without landing. They spend their first 6 years of life flying over the ocean without ever touching the ground. These claws of the southern cassowary are proof that birds are definitely descendants of dinosaurs. Black ivory is one of the most expensive coffee beans in the world, costing about $500 per pound. It is made from beans that can only be found in elephant poop. This graveyard of animal bones was found inside the nest of a harpy eagle. Being the most powerful bird in the Amazon, they prey on species as big as monkeys, sloths, and even deer. Deeper than 30 feet underwater, there's no red light, so blood appears green. About 47 million years ago, whales had legs and lived both on land and in the sea. This is a perfectly camouflaged mossy-tailed gecko, found only in Madagascar. A pike jumped out of the water, likely chasing prey, got stuck in a tree, and died. Eventually, a bird came around and built a nest in its mouth. Africa's slowly ripping apart due to continental drift. In 2005, a large crack opened up along fault lines in Ethiopia that will continue to widen. Scientists say this will form an entirely new ocean within the next few million years. When mating, flatworms engage in violent penis fencing to determine who will be the father. The winner who stabs the other with its pecker remains a male while the loser becomes a female. Cockroaches find humans so disgusting that if they touch you, they will run away and clean themselves immediately. If a female fox dies, their mate will stay single forever. But if a male fox dies, his widow will search for a new mate immediately. Sharks have survived 4 out of the 5 mass extinction events and have been around for more than 400 million years. This means they're older than dinosaurs, older than trees, and even older than your mom. This extremely rare red sprite lightning was captured over Texas last year. This happens when a strong bolt of lightning is positively charged instead of negative. This sprite was estimated to be about 30 miles tall. Jonathan the Tortoise was born in 1832, 5 years before the Victorian era even started. Next year, he will turn 190, making him the oldest known land animal alive today. Mole rats don't feel pain, can survive 18 minutes without oxygen, and are completely immune to cancer. They're also the only mammals that live in colonies like bees or ants, with one large queen mole rat who gives birth to all the others. Artifact porn. This 2,000-year-old sapphire ring is believed to have belonged to Caligula, the third emperor of Rome. It includes an engraved portrait of his fourth and final wife, Cisonia. In Switzerland, there's a 500-year-old statue of a man eating a sack of babies, and no one is sure why. 1,600-year-old sling bullets from ancient Rome were found with the words "Take that" inscribed on them. This incredible sculpture from 1783 was carved completely from a block of marble, even including the handkerchief. Morbidly Wholesome. An African boy named Ulrich grew up with his legs bent backwards due to a rare condition. That was until a hospital called Africa Mercy performed a free surgery on him and finally gave him the ability to walk. A vet from Australia gave this parrot new prosthetic wings after they were severely trimmed by its former owner. A Russian dog named Shavi was hit by a car and left for dead by the driver. She was saved by a woman named Nina, who took her in, nursed her back to health, and found her a new home. Shavi then managed to escape from the home and traveled 200 miles to return to Nina. This homeless man jumped into a river to save his rabbit after she was thrown over a bridge by a passerby. He was then flooded with food donations and job offers as the passerby was charged with animal cruelty. This is a photo of two parents listening to the heartbeat of their son inside of another man. The son was only 23 years old when he overdosed on opioids, but he saved the life of another man that he never even met. The author of Jaws dedicated the last decade of his career to the preservation of sharks. He felt obligated to make up for the fear and misinformation spread by his book. This father, dying of cancer, walked his two daughters down the aisle since he wouldn't get to do it on their wedding days. Even though doctors advised against it, Jimmy Doyle took a fight with Sugar Ray Robinson so that he could buy his mother a house. When Robinson killed him in the ring, he donated his earnings from his next 4 fights to Doyle's mother. Here are some of the craziest prehistoric animals that were found frozen in permafrost. In 2007, this amazingly well-preserved woolly rhinoceros carcass was discovered by gold miners in Siberia. It's right around 39,000 years old. The cave lion has been extinct for over 13,000 years, but this one looks like it could have died yesterday. However, this specimen is over 50,000 years old, and scientists say it has great potential for cloning in the future. Lyuba was a 1-month-old woolly mammoth that died around 42,000 years ago. She was found with her skin and organs so well preserved that her mother's milk could still be found in her stomach. Dogor is an 18,000-year-old puppy that was found with his teeth, nose, and whiskers still intact. DNA sequencing has not been able to determine whether Dogor is a wolf or dog, as it's possible that he represents a common ancestor to both. A man was photographing a plane crossing over a rainbow when it was struck by lightning at the exact same time. In 2009, a man was kidnapped in Mexico immediately after giving a lecture on how not to be kidnapped in Mexico. In 1970, a dead sperm whale was blown up with dynamite and chunks of its flesh were launched up to 700 feet away. One of the pieces destroyed a brand new car that was purchased during a promotion called Get a Whale of a Deal. In late 1864, the brother of John Wilkes Booth was boarding a train when he noticed a man was about to be crushed by the car. So he quickly grabbed the man by the collar and pulled him to safety. The man he'd saved was Robert Lincoln, the son of the president who would be assassinated by John Wilkes Booth just months later. In 1903, a pair of nearly identical strangers named Will West and William West ended up in the same Kansas prison. This case was a big part of the reason why fingerprints are now used for identification. In 2019, a young man named Tyler Moon was running in a Minneapolis marathon when he suddenly collapsed. Thankfully, he was wearing a Jesus Saves running bib since the man behind him was a nurse who performed CPR and saved his life. The nurse's first name was Jesus. Weird space facts. Judith Love Cohen was an American engineer who helped create the guidance system that brought Apollo 13 back home safely. While working on a crucial equation one day, she went into labor but took the problem with her to the hospital. She soon called her boss to tell him that she finished it. Then she gave birth to Jack Black. NASA employs a man named George Aldridge to sniff everything before they send it to space. If George doesn't like the smell, it doesn't go to space. The Kessler syndrome is the theory that a small collision of our satellites could cause a major catastrophe for humanity. The collision could create a cascade where satellites break into tiny pieces and destroy other satellites, until the Earth is surrounded by a massive cloud of flying shrapnel. This would make it impossible to leave the planet for many generations.